What's up everyone, welcome back to Temple Rev, or should I say Reverend Mantis. I am rebranding the channel. I am Reverend Mantis, just a nickname that I go by. You're in the right place, all the content's gonna stay the same, just the name's gonna change. But on that note, I am going to say if you are here or subscribed for my aquarium videos, unfortunately I will not be doing any more of those anytime soon. I'm no longer able to have pets or even fish in my apartment anymore, so I had to give them away. Luckily I had some friends to pick those up. So if you're here for those, I do apologize. There will not be any more fish videos anytime soon, but I hope you guys still stick around. For now, it's just going to be my other hobbies that I have plenty of doing. Like today, I'm going to be building my new entertainment stand. I am an avid video game collector and player. I have a lot of old consoles that I just can't really display easily without having just cables everywhere and that sort of thing. So I've decided to sort of put together this custom stand to where I'd have all of my systems right out in the open and easily accessible. If I want to play anything, it's right there, and plus it just looks awesome having all of these old consoles sitting out in my living room. Here is the stand that I am currently using. It doesn't look that bad in my opinion. It just doesn't have the room for everything I want to put in it, and it was very cheaply made. You can see here some of the tearing that occurred from just putting some standard little 3M command strips on top. As soon as I went to pull them off, it just started peeling right off of the particle board. So I wasn't very impressed with the quality of this thing. So here's what we're going to be replacing it with. It is surprisingly hard to find something with glass doors and just 6 basic cubbies, but I found one. I will provide a link down in the description if you guys are interested. It also leaves me room to do a few modifications. It also allows a wide range of consoles to be able to fit in these cubbies, which is perfect because I have a wide variety to put in here. So here's what we're going to be doing. Each cubby is going to house a different video game console, and each cubby will also have an exhaust fan. I'm also going to be adding thermal sensors in each one to monitor the temperatures. And then finally I'm going to be putting LED strips in, just to give it a little bit of accent lighting. The fans and the thermal sensors will be controlled by these. These are pretty much just 5¼ inch bay PC fan controllers. They have nice little LED readouts on the screen so that it can tell you the RPMs of each fan and also the temperatures for each cubby. Since this project is going to be powered by a standard 12-volt PC power supply, these are nice because they have a Molex connector for the power. Now, instead of using a PC case to mount these things, I've decided to create my own little cabinet. I just drew up a quick model in Blender and cut out the wood from some hardwood I got at the store. I went with poplar since it was the cheapest. As for the front of the cabinet, I also designed this little switch plate thing and had it made and cut out of aluminum, but more on that later. So the first step is going to be mounting these exhaust fans. I just chose your basic Noctua 80mm PC fans. I'm going to use them as exhaust first. I may switch these around to intake depending on how the temperatures go. And all I did was drill a few holes into the back panels and mount them on with some bolts. I also chose to install a piece of plywood on the back of the stand so I can easily screw and mount things into it instead of the thin backing of the actual stand itself. Plus I didn't want to drill a bunch of holes and ruin it right away. I painted it this brown that I had lying around. It was close enough, I'd say. You're not really gonna see this, so it's better than just the plain old wood. Here's the front with the doors on. Now for the next step will be the temperature sensors. These came with the fan controllers and just connect via a 2-pin cable. And all I did was mount them into the side of each cubby, like so. The temperature sensor cables weren't long enough right out of the box, so I did have to solder some extensions onto them. I then used some heat shrink and cable sleeving to make them look a lot nicer. I also tossed the LED strips into each of the cubbies. Notice that they are Molex powered. Now before I go routing all of this stuff, I need to get this control box built. I need to know how long the cables actually will need to be, so I'm going to go ahead and put this thing together and see what kind of lengths we need to cut. And I'm sorry about the lack of footage, but here it is, finished. It has been stained and oiled, and I think it came out great. The color's cool and the grain in the wood looks really neat with the stain. Next up is the faceplate. Now, like I said earlier, I had this custom cut, and I'm lucky enough to work at a place that has a CNC available for me to use. So I had this cut out and then painted. I've never painted aluminum before, but I think it came out great. It looks awesome. Now we need to mount it to the box. And here it is. Now, once again, I'm sorry about the lack of footage. I did not have the space during this whole build to get everything, so you get the idea. There will be a pan later on of the full setup, so don't worry. So now that I know the lengths of all the cables I need, it's time to route them. And here's the outcome. I think it looks pretty good so far, nice and neat. But we still have a lot of work to do. Next on the list was to wire all of the LED strips. Still pretty neat, but it's starting to fill up. I also added a power strip down at the bottom and mounted the Molex connectors from the power supply in the cabinet. I did leave a little bit of length on the hoop of the cabling to the cabinet just so I can easily move it around if I need to. I tried to keep this as neat as possible. It's not bad. Inside of here looks a little messy, but let's just ignore that. No one's ever gonna see this, so. But it works. The LEDs in each cubby will be controlled by these toggle switches, and I'm also going to be throwing some LED indicators as well. Next up was to add all of the cables and components for all of my game consoles. But before we do that, let me give you a preview of what I'm going to be putting in here. First up, we have a Sega Saturn. I'll be connecting this using a RGB SCAR cable from Insurrection Industries. Next up, we have my Sega Dreamcast. For the Dreamcast, I'll be using a Kuro from the Behar Brothers. This will give me a VGA output. Next up is a Wii. I will be using a component cable from HD Retrovision. Now, the Wii is the only console that I have to put in here that actually has a power brick. And since I didn't want to mess inside each cubby, I needed to mount this onto the back. I found a design on Thingiverse and printed it out. Moving on, we have a PS3. Nothing special here, we'll just be using HDMI. Next, a PS2. This one will be also using a HD Retrovision component cable. Next on the list is an original Xbox. And once again, we will be using a component cable for the video output. This one is a Microsoft brand. Everything but the PS3 will be plugged into this OSSC. This also needed a mount, and I 3D printed another design off of Thingiverse. The PS2, the Wii, and the Xbox will go into this component switcher, and then into the main component port of the OSSC. The Saturn will use the SCART connection right next to it. As for the Dreamcast, I will be using the VGA input. And since I'll have a separate audio cable coming from the Dreamcast and the component switcher, I had to use this little mini switcher. So it's essentially going to be a switch between the Dreamcast and everything else. So the planning stage of this backplane was ridiculous, but I got it done, and here's the outcome. There's a lot going on here, but I think it looks pretty good overall for what is in here. There is a lot of stuff I had to add, and the planning took the longest. Here's a little close-up of the OSSC with the little mini switcher stacked on top. I didn't really have room for the component switcher on the back, so I had to mount that to the side here. And after everything, here's what it looks like in place. I love it. I think it came out great. It looks awesome. Everything works the way it should. I'll give you a demonstration here in a second, but overall, I'm very happy with everything done. So, yay.
Now over on the side, you may have noticed this little rack over here. This is where I'll be housing my Xbox 360, as well as an emulation PC that I use for cartridge-based games. These two plus the PS3 will be plugged into this HDMI switcher, and then right directly into my TV. This also needed something to be mounted to, so I had to design up another model in Blender, and here it is mounted to the side of the rack. Now I know all the colors don't match perfectly here, but close enough. I'm in an apartment, I can't do anything super permanent, so this is good enough for now. But here's the full pan with my desk that I built from a previous video, and I think it looks really good. Sorry about the glare, it's near impossible to get the lighting perfect in my apartment here. And here's a shot of the room from the side. Well, I think that's going to about do it for this episode. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you liked what I did. It was a really fun build, and I hope to do more of this stuff in the future. So if you liked everything, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.